So in this video, I'm going to discuss my experience in Cusco, Peru. I know I've made a video about my experience in Lima, Peru, but I think it's useful to make these videos because I found that in Peru, traveling to different cities, you're going to get a completely different experience. And so, as I've stated already, in this video, I'm going to discuss my experience in Cusco, Peru. Now, one of the most impactful things for me, the first thing that comes to mind when I think Cusco, Peru, is I think the altitude of that city. Now, Peruvians will warn you, even people that have gone to Cusco, they'll warn you like, hey, you need to give your body a day to get used to the altitude. And me, being ignorant to the fact of this being a reality, I was like, man, I work out, I'm in good shape, I'm young, I'm not worried about that, my lungs will be fine. I got to Cusco, Peru, I landed, everything was fine for about an hour, and then the altitude sickness hit me. Now, I wasn't familiar with this because even in the United States, even though I've been to like different states where the altitude is different, I'd never experienced this high of an altitude. And what basically happened is my body shut down. There was like a low-level persistent headache, walking a lot, you feel fatigued the entire time. You feel like you want to throw up. You feel like you want to pass out. And so up until my body got used to the altitude there, and I started taking some pills and some appropriate pills and some cocoa tea, mate de coca. That's when I started feeling better and I was able to actually experience the city. So that's the first thing that I'd say is prepare yourself for the altitude if you plan to go to Cusco. It's not a joke. It's not like you being in shape or you exercising or you being from Colorado, will get you prepared for that. It's a completely different beast. So that's the first thing that I'd like to discuss, warn you all about, give you some information about. The next thing I want to discuss is the fact that of all the cities in Peru, Cusco gave me the most culture shock. And I say that because there is how could I describe this? There's a lot of remnants of Antiguo Peru. Like, I don't know how to describe this really in English, but there's an undercurrent of a strong Quechua culture and just a strong native culture in Cusco that made it so that some of the cultural norms that I'm used to and that I've even gotten accustomed to in other Latin American countries were not the case. I also found that the people are super nice. Amable, super nice. But they're a little bit more in Cusco. I found them to be a little bit more timid, a little bit more closed off. So much so that if you've seen my Colombian videos, when I was just walking, or even you'll see in other videos in Peru, if I'm just walking around and introducing myself to people or talking to people, that in other countries and in other parts of Peru traded conversations. In Cusco, a lot of times it was just like a humble, nice, super nice, but very short. Like, okay, it's that. Very humbly and very calm and timid and meek. And so I found that it was just culture shock. Like I noticed that there were a lot of cultural norms that were just very different from what I'm accustomed to, not only in the United States, but in other Latin American countries. Also, I know this is a Spanish channel, and so I am going to discuss my experience with the Spanish specific to Cusco. But before that, I'd like to talk about who I think would really enjoy Cusco, Peru. And I think if you're someone that loves history, Cusco is rich in history. I mean, I think I would name it the historical center of Peru. And so that's one thing that I recommend. I noticed a lot of backpackers, a lot of people that like active activities like hiking, swimming, kayaking, all those kind of things. I definitely would recommend Cusco to someone like that. And someone that's just interested in the true history of Peru. Obviously, other parts of Peru have a strong history, but from what I gleaned from my trip there, it felt like to me and still feels like Cusco is the historic center of Peru. And if I'm not mistaken, at one point it was the capital of the country. I think. I could be wrong. I know Lima has a very strong history, but I think that's the case. When it comes to the food, I liked the food in Cusco, but I hands down would give the food to Lima. And that's not just my opinion. I think that's, Lima's a world-renowned city for food. And so I definitely would give the food category to Lima. And to close this video, I'd like to discuss the Spanish that I heard and interacted with in Cusco. And to be honest, guys, I didn't really find much of a difference. I think everywhere, I can't speak for everywhere, but everywhere that I went to in Peru, I found a a standard form of Spanish. I didn't find anything that was crazy. When I say unique, I don't mean Peruvian Spanish isn't unique. I'm saying I didn't find it extremely difficult to understand Peruvians is my point. Whereas I'm sure in other countries that have specific dialects, it might be harder to understand the people. Now, I can say that there's a strong Quechua influence, the native language there. There's a strong Quechua influence in the Spanish. And so the accent is influenced by that, but it's still easily understandable. Again, as I said in my Lima video, Peruvians speak very crisp Spanish, very crisp, clean Spanish. So yeah, I hope this video helped. Just gave you a little insight into Cusco, Peru. Like I said before, I have a lot more videos coming about Peru. And if you have any questions for me, any comments, let me know below. And if not, hopefully you all enjoy my video about Machu Picchu that I should have coming out, pretty soon. All right. So I know that I said I was going to end the video here, but as I'm editing this video, I'm thinking about what are some of the things that may have caused me to have the supposed culture shock that I had. And I think about that because when I think about it, when we left the center of Cusco and we went to these small towns around Cusco, I noticed that the people weren't as reserved. They were asking us questions. Where are you guys from? Where are you from? Da, da, da. It was more of that, not really extroverted spirit, but just that natural interest. And so what that made me think about, to close this video, is that maybe that culture shock of the people being very kind of reserved, maybe that's not a cultural element there. It may just be that Cusco is a super touristic city, because I remember a lot of our tour guides telling us that, before what's happening now in the world, and I can't say that word here, but before what's happening in the world now, Cusco was filled with tourists and foreigners. So it might just be that, in Cusco, they're so accustomed to having foreigners that it's not a big deal. They kind of just, I don't know. I'm really guessing things here. And if you all maybe can help me out, Peruvians, if you're watching this video, you maybe can help me out. But that's just something that I wanted to bring up here, because I remember distinctly that when we went outside of the center of Cusco and we went to the small towns, that interest that I'm normally getting from other people, like, where are you from, da da da, and that same thing that, that energy that I'm accustomed to getting when I travel, I got that in the small towns outside of Cusco. So that's just another point that I wanted to add. Hopefully this video isn't too long. I appreciate you guys watching as always. If you have any information for me, any insight into the things that I touched on in this video, let me know below. But if not, until the next video.